Chapter 12 of She and Allan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Lars Rolander. She and Allan by H. Rider Haggard. Chapter 12. The White Witch. I descended from the litter and told the others what the old fellow had said. Robertson did not want to come, and indeed refused to do so until I suggested to him that such conduct might prejudice a powerful person against us. Umslopogaas was indifferent, putting, as he remarked, no faith in a ruler who was a woman. Only Hans, although he was so tired, acquiesced with some eagerness, for the fact being that his brain was more alert and that he had all the curiosity of the monkey tribe which he so much resembled in appearance, and wanted to see this queen whom Zikali revered. In the end we started, conducted by Billali and by men who carried torches, whereof the light showed me that we were passing between houses, or at any rate walls that had been those of houses, and along what seemed to be a paved street. Walking under what I took to be a great arch or portico, we came into a court that was full of towering pillars but unroofed, for I could see the stars above. At its end we entered a building of which the doorway was hung with mats, to find that it was lighted with lamps and that all down its length on either side guards with long spears stood at intervals. "Oh, Baas," said Hans hesitatingly, "this is the mouth of a trap," while Umslopogaas glared about him suspiciously, fingering the handle of his great axe. "Be silent," I answered. "All this mountain is a trap, therefore another does not matter, and we have our pistols." Walking forward between the double line of guards who stood immovable as statues, we came to some curtains hung at the end of a long narrow hall which, although I know little of such things, were, I noted, made of rich stuff embroidered in colours and with golden threads. Before these curtains Billali motioned us to halt. After a whispered colloquy with some beyond, carried on through the join of the curtains, he vanished between them, leaving us alone for 5 minutes or more. At length they opened and a tall and elegant woman with an Arab cast of countenance and clad in white robes appeared and beckoned us to enter. She did not speak or answer when I spoke to her, which was not wonderful as afterwards I discovered that she was a mute. We went in, I wondering very much what we were going to see. On the further side of the curtains was a room of no great size, illumined with lamps of which the light fell upon sculptured walls. It looked to me as though it might once have been the inmost court or a sanctuary of some temple, for at its head was a dais upon which once perhaps had stood the shrine or statue of a god. On this dais there was now a couch, and on the couch a goddess. There she sat, straight and still, clothed in shining white and veiled, but with her draperies so arranged that they emphasized rather than concealed the wonderful elegance of her tall form. From beneath the veil, which was such as a bride wears, appeared 2 plaits of glossy raven hair of great length, to the end of each of which was suspended a single large pearl. On either side of her stood a tall woman like her who had led us through the curtains, and on his knees in front, but to the right, knelt Billali. About this seated personage there was an air of singular majesty, such as might pervade a queen as fancy paints her, though she had a nobler figure than any queen I ever saw depicted. Mystery seemed to flow from her. It clothed her like the veil she wore, which of course heightened the effect. Beauty flowed from her also. Although it was shrouded, I knew that it was there. No veil or coverings could obscure it, at least to my imagination. Moreover, she breathed out power also. One felt it in the air as one feels a thunderstorm before it breaks. and it seemed to me that this power was not quite human, that it drew its strength from afar and dwelt a stranger to the earth. To tell the truth, although my curiosity, always strong, was enormously excited, and though now I felt glad that I had attempted this journey with all its perils, I was horribly afraid, so much afraid that I should have liked to turn and run away. From the beginning I knew myself to be in the presence of an unearthly being, clothed in a soft and perfect woman's flesh, something alien, too, and different from our human race. What a picture it all made! There she sat, quiet and stately as a perfect marble statue. Only her breast, rising and falling beneath the white robe, showed that she was alive and breathed as others do. Another thing showed it also, her eyes. At first I could not see them through the veil, but presently, either because I grew accustomed to the light or because they brightened as those of certain animals have power to do, when they watch intently, it ceased to be a covering to them. Distinctly I saw them now, large and dark and splendid with a tinge of deep blue in the iris, alluring and yet awful in their majestic aloofness which seemed to look through and beyond, to embrace all without seeking and without effort. Those eyes were like windows through which light flows from within, a light of the spirit. I glanced round to see the effect of this vision upon my companions. It was most peculiar. Hans had sunk to his knees, his hands were joined in the attitude of prayer, and his ugly little face reminded me of that of a big fish out of water and dying from excess of air. Robertson, startled out of his abstraction, stared at the royal looking woman on the couch with his mouth open. "Man," he whispered, "I've got them back although I have touched nothing for weeks. Only this time they are lovely, for yon's no human lady. I feel it in my bones." Umslopogaas stood great and grim, his hands resting on the handle of his tall axe, and he stared also, the blood pulsing against the skin that covered the hole in his head. "Watcher by night," he said to me in his deep voice, but also speaking in a whisper. "This chieftainess is not one woman, but all women. Beneath those robes of hers I seem to see the beauty of one who has gone beyond, of the lily who is lost to me. Do you not feel it thus, Macumazahn?" Now that he mentioned it, certainly I did. Indeed, I had felt it all along, although amid the rush of sensations this one had scarcely disentangled itself in my mind. I looked at the draped shape and saw—well, never mind whom I saw. It was not one only, but several in sequence. Also a woman who at that time I did not know, although I came to know her afterwards, too well, perhaps, or at any rate quite enough to puzzle me. The odd thing was that in this hallucination the personalities of these individuals seemed to overlap and merge, till at last I began to wonder whether they were not parts of the same entity or being, manifesting itself in sundry shapes, yet springing from one centre, as different coloured rays flow from the same crystal, while the beams from their source of light shift and change. But the fancy is too metaphysical for my poor powers to express as clearly as I would. Also no doubt it was but a hallucination that had its origin, perhaps, in the mischievous brain of her who sat before us. At length she spoke and her voice sounded like silver bells heard over water in a great calm. It was low and sweet, oh! so sweet that at its first notes for a moment my senses seemed to swoon and my pulse to stop. It was to me that she addressed herself. "My servants here," and ever so slightly she turned her head towards the kneeling Billali, "tells me that you who are named Watcher in the Night understand the tongue in which I speak.